Welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the law firm Abercrombie & Sanchez, PLLC. You can find us on the internet at astxlegal.com or by calling 1-888-981-7509. Your hosts are Brian Abercrombie and Samuel Sanchez. Brian has been practicing law for 18 years and is board certified by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization in the area of family law. Sam has been practicing for 13 years, is licensed in both Texas and Florida, and is a certified mediator. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinion of the hosts. It's not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter, and it should not replace the advice of competent counsel. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Top Texas Lawyers Podcast. I am your host, Brian Abercrombie, and with me, as always, is my co-host, partner in crime, Samuel Sanchez. Sam, how you doing?
Doing well. The queso to your chips, my friend.
Yes. I like the Torchy's hat. Shout out to Torchy's.
Giving them some love. Love their tacos.
Great tacos.
Love their queso. Oh, yeah. Can't go wrong with Torchy's.
So it's been a while, Sam. How's the summer been?
It has been hot. Like we started out wet and then we just got hot. So that's all we got now.
Heat, humidity, and all the fun stuff of Texas in August.
Yeah,
yes.
2 a days. It takes me back to the days. You remember, brother? Being out in the field, burning it down. Yeah,
burning up, heat stroke.
Ice. Oh yeah, coach is saying no water break. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Passing out. The good stuff.
The great
hoping
stuff.
For rain. Hoping for rain during that afternoon practice.
Oh, seeing the puffy clouds, those are my favorite. The big puffy clouds. You're like, oh, it's going to rain. No, it's not.
No, keep running.
Yep.
Anyway, so good summer, good vacation. Anything good?
Yeah, hey, everybody's healthy. So, gotta count our blessings there. As far as that, it's just been work filled. We've been back and forth to the Supreme Court, you and I, a couple of times. So we're getting to be regular sparring partners, us and them.
Yes, I'm getting to know our filings quite well.
Yeah. So we've been busy, but it's been a good summer. It's been a really obviously an interesting summer as far as the way laws are changing and passing. It's such shifting sand all across the country, not just in the state of Texas or Florida. Obviously, we're just we're seeing so many dramatic things happen that it's just kind of like hold on to your hat.
Right. Stuff seems to be changing by the minute, and people are making law now that used to not make law, and now they're we're having court fights over that. We're having it's a crazy time. It's I guess it's good for us that we've been monumentally busy, which is obviously a good sign for for business. It's not necessarily a good sign for society sometimes, but but yeah, it's been a crazy year. And I think we're at one of those kind of tipping points where laws seem to be changing, and attitudes seem to be changing, and we'll have to see what the future shakes out.
Yeah, and the challenge along those same lines, brother. You raise a great point. Is that it seems like while we've seen a lot of new law come about, it seems like there's more of a disposition by individuals, by businesses, by entities, by municipalities to not follow the law.
Right.
So you kind of look at it and go, well,
it's the application of the existing law.
Exactly, it's getting challenged, or they're not applying precedent. We've gone in front of courts multiple times now where we're like, that doesn't comport with the law, and they're like, so what? It's like a unique time. We're going to do what we want to do. So it's it's been a strange summer for sure.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about some new law that's going to hit us in September. It's the new permitless carry law, which is set to take effect, I believe, on September 1.
September 1.
So we can talk about that. I think everybody wants to know about guns, right? You're a gun owner, I'm a gun owner. You need to know these laws, especially living here in Texas. And with the rise of not to go on a editorial here, but with the rise in crime in the big cities over the last year or more, the crime rate's gone up exponentially in Houston and Dallas, and you need to know your rights. You need to know, I mean, because you don't know what's going to happen. And, I'm a proponent of being able to carry a firearm if you need it. And if you feel safer that way, then that's the way you ought to go. So, but I mean, you need to know the rules. And I think that's what we're here to try to help out with.
Well, for sure. And I mean, I know we usually, just to take us a half step back and not to jump ahead, because I know we're gonna cover some meaty stuff. I think this is long overdue once that law got passed and signed by the governor here in Texas. But so are we gonna do our hey in the news, our superstars?
Yes.
Hey, you know what, these crazy people. All right, I got one. I got one I want to talk about. So
well, let's cover maybe we should cover a little bit about what we've hit in the past. The Supreme Court decided on the case with the girl. And the tweets and the outside of the school.
Off campus, didn't make the cheerleading squad, basically says fuck off to her team because they're terrible. And the school district comes back and says, oh, you're getting all kinds of disciplinary action. And she's like, I don't think so. And now obviously she's in college now, so she's but it does go all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court comes back and says
off campus,
you can do what you want to do. Hey, big mark for free speech,
So it can't penalize you for the softball team if you tweet out that you hate the school, you hate the coaches, and they're a bunch of biased, SOBs. We'll still let you try out for the softball team, I guess.
Can't use that.
So okay, Brave New World. I mean, I get it from a certain standpoint, but also at the same time, I mean, do you maybe it's a failure of parenting or something like that. I mean, your kids being responsible for teaching kids to be responsible for their actions, and your actions may have consequences. But at the same time, where does schoolhouse doors stop?
Well, and the part of it is that and really the bright line distinction I think that the court wanted to make is she signed an agreement that said, hey, I'm not going to do these kind of disparaging remarks or act out of the decorum that we believe is acceptable for our squad. And then she went off and said, hey, this is how I want to behave and you can't stop it. So,
she's not on the squad. But
right. She's not on the squad. And that was the big piece of it. They're like, hey, she may have signed it, but she's not on it. So that she wants to complain about it now. I mean, you're not going to inhibit it in that capacity. I think where, the interesting point or the line of distinction that I would want to make is, so you're a player. Hey, you and I were both ballers, right? So, hey, we're on the football team. They all want you to sign these agreements now that say, hey, this is what you're going to agree and how you're going to behave. And you do something off campus, like you were known to do, because I know you were the bad boy of the school, brother. So,
yeah, right.
You get in trouble, you do something, it's against this school code. They come back in and want to discipline you. Can they do it? They didn't really go into that. They just said, hey, in this instance, she's off. These comments are made. You're not going to be able to penalize her for that. I don't know.
Our coaches felt that they could. So.
Yeah, I can tell you, I ran many a lap and many a hill and many a bear claw. Over that exact.
Our coaches felt that they could penalize you for off-campus activity.
Yeah, running boards against the O-line, dude. I mean, I'm telling you, like that was a penalty when you were on defense and you're way smaller. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's definitely landmark. We're going to have to see how far they want to carry it and how many people want to come in and challenge it, because obviously kids are always getting in trouble. So.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your high and mighty divorce case with the crazy stuff going on in the news these days.
Oh, so it's not even a divorce case. It actually relates to our gun issue. It's Sharon Stone. Now, if you're anyone of our age.
Oh, Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone was
her in Total Recall? Ooh.
Smoking hot. I mean, look, Basic Instinct, one of the most famous scenes all time, caught on film. The lady
Total Recall. Do you remember her in Total Recall?
Oh yeah, she is wicked. She's gorgeous. So, anyways, Sharon Stone. She's at the grocery store. There's an armed robbery. She's not armed. She just basically puts on her Sharon Stone persona, goes into these people, tells them to fuck off, basically screams and yells, and they call it off. They go out the door. And I'm like,
so she's a hero.
She's a straight baller, like a hero. Totally stopped.
She is a total hero.
Yeah, from going in there unarmed. So I'm just kidding. And I think she did make some intimations, basically like, hey, you know what? If I was carrying, you'd be in a big, pot of trouble. So it really tied directly into what we're going to talk about today, which is, hey, look, now in Texas, where before you had to have a license to carry, now you can carry concealed in the entire state, irrespective of if you've done a course or not. And that's kind of where we're going to go.
You could pack what we call a heater.
You can pack a heater, and we're still open carry too. So don't fret if you want to carry it on the outside.
Carry a long rifle. Carry a long rifle
free
if you want to.
Yep.
So just to give you kind of a rundown, just everyone a rundown on the law. Law applies to anyone that's 21 years of age or older. If you're, so long as you have a clean criminal record, you can't be disqualified from carrying a firearm. So, and in fact, it actually enhance the penalties if you are caught with a concealed weapon and you have one of those prohibitions in place. So that was one of the concessions for it. So family violence offenders, things like that, criminals can't carry under the new concealed carry law. You can carry it concealed or in an open holster. I mean, you've always been able to open carry, but now you can conceal. Where can you carry it? Most public government buildings that do not prohibit them. Basically, where they're talking about where they're banning them, polling place while voting's taking place, a government meeting open to the public, a courthouse, except when you're specifically authorized to be able to carry. I don't know when that would ever be, but okay.
Open rebellion, that'd be the only time.
A place where high school, collegiate, or professional sporting or interscholastic events are being held. So high school, college football, anything
Cowboys
like that.
games.
A racetrack, a correctional facility, a prison, an access controlled airport terminal, an amusement park, or a bar. So aside from that, if you want to go down to the mall with your gun, I guess you can. It says that churches and private businesses can continue to prohibit guns with a written or a verbal notice. They also have a discretion to ban open carry but allow concealed carry. So you could put a sign up that says we allow concealed carry, just don't brandish your weapon out here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the violations of carrying carrying concealed in a prohibited location is a Class A misdemeanor or a third-degree felony. You can still obtain a license if you want to, but it's not required. But apparently there's a safety course that they've offered that you can take, which I would encourage everybody to take a firearm safety course if you haven't already. Doesn't change any kind of background requirements. I think those are federal anyway. They require a background check. Private sellers don't require a background check. So now here's where it gets a little bit trickier. Can law enforcement officers detain someone for carrying a gun? So the only thing you're doing is carrying this concealed weapon. Mm-hmm. So there was a House amendment that they tried to pass, but the Senate stripped a House amendment that would have banned peace officers from making a stop solely because the person is carrying or a partially or concealed or wholly visible handgun in a holster. So it all depends on the interpretation of the bill. So an officer acting in the lawful discharge of that officer's official duties may disarm a person at any time the officer reasonably believes it's necessary for the protection of the person, officer, or another individual. So that's gonna create some litigation down the road.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
And Texas will join 20 other states where handgun can be carried without a permit.
Yeah, I mean, so we're obviously not unique in that capacity. I would tell you that we're one of the larger states that actually is going to have these laws enacted. And the challenge really isn't that, there's arguments on both sides. I've always been a fan of some restrictions as to who can do it, just because, look at the statistics. A lot of people usually get killed with their own guns because they don't know how to use them. And so if you're not, somebody who's been around them, been raised with them, spent time with them, is going to practice with them, take some safety courses, you're just going to go buy a gun and think you're going to be fine. It could be a recipe for disaster. I understand the mentality behind the law, though. Everybody's like, hey, the only people who are actually adhering to the license to carry parameters are the good guys. Everybody else is like, hey, I can carry anytime. You go down into the hood and, you walk, every fourth person has a gun and none of them have permits.
I mean, my my personal opinion is I'm not going to carry it in a shopping mall. I'm not going to carry it into a restaurant. I carry it in my car for protection just in case. Obviously, keep one at home in case of an emergency. Because I mean, I'm a firm believer in if somebody's breaking into your house, whatever's going to happen is going to happen before the police get there. You can call 911, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, at least in my neighborhood, whatever's going to happen is going to happen before the police get there. And they could have the best response time in the world, and it's still you may have to take matters into your own hands. But that being said, I mean, I think there's a lot of sensibility, you know, sense that has to go into this. Common sense, you know, I wouldn't carry into a shopping mall. I wouldn't carry into a sporting event or a concert or anything like that. But I mean, you just have to know the law of where you're going, I think, and you have to be aware of what their rules are. Um, but I mean, I'm not going to fault anybody who carries if they feel they need to. But I would tell you this: I 100% agree with you that the majority of the time, people end up getting harmed by their own gun.
Yeah.
If they don't know what they're doing, if they don't know how to use it, if they don't, you're responsible for that gun when you pull it out of the holster or pull it out and brandish it. So you're responsible for what happens. So you've got to with great power comes great responsibility, like they say in like our hero Spider-Man.
That's right.
Spider-Man
Friendly
adheres
neighborhood
too. So,
Spider-Man.
but no, I mean, I think everybody should take a gun safety course if you feel you need to. But that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Well, and I agree, Brian. And not only that, but the advantage of a gun safety course is these gun safety instructors have really spent time studying the law and its applications. So a lot of times they can give you insight that most people don't. They just go buy a gun, put it in their holster under their shirt and start walking around. They'll tell you you can't take it in the hospitals. They'll tell you be careful when you walk into a restaurant bar, which most restaurants now are, because all of a sudden you go in and you think you're at a restaurant, you get into an altercation, or somebody sees that and they're like, oh, he's brandishing this weapon, even though you aren't. It's just a flash under your shirt, and then all of a sudden you're getting arrested, and they're saying, hey, look, it was a posting, you can't take it into bars. And you're like, I thought I was at a restaurant. There's just a lot of complexity behind how to carry concealed, that this law, even though it spells it out, sort of, it doesn't really give you all the details of it, that a lot of times a short course, couple of hours, somebody will have the time to kind of walk you through it and tell you, hey, here's what you can and can't do, should and shouldn't do.
I mean, and we live in a more dangerous time than it even was 5 years ago. So I get people wanting to carry laws, but I mean, I think it's incumbent upon you as the person carrying the gun to know the rules of where you're going, where you're going to be, what are their rules with respect to, to carrying a firearm. But I mean, as far as keeping one in your vehicle or, I mean, I completely understand that. I mean, how many times have we been inundated with news stories about people getting drug out of cars and, different things happening. So, I understand that. And I understand wanting to keep your family safe if you have to travel or you're going through, a rough neighborhood or whatever.
And hell, brother, not even rough neighborhoods nowadays. Like you're walking in the freaking suburbs and there's shootouts. I mean, you just never know. That's the whole reason behind this law. The law was enacted because it's become a much more violent society that we live in. And because of that, the propensity, the likelihood that you might, be in a violent encounter where you would need a firearm to defend yourself, to defend your family, to defend somebody else, it's much higher than it's ever been. And in that, so I don't think either you or I is going to ever say it's not a good idea to have a gun, to be prepared to use a gun, to understand what the ramifications are when you use that gun, because there are substantial legal ramifications, even just to pull it out and aim it at somebody. But in that, you do have to know, not only understand that, but understand like what this law means. Like, a lot of people don't even really understand what concealed is, right? So you'll talk to people and, they'll say, well, in open carry state, does it really matter now that we're going to have that? You could already carry these guns anyways. Well, an open carry, obviously available, on your holster, attached to your belt on the outside of your shirt, is completely different than concealed. Well, if you have it under your shirt, but you could still kind of see a part of it, is it brandishing it? Is it, no, I have it in a holster, but it's visible, but it's actually concealed? Some of the time, am I concealing it? There's just a lot of nuances to how this law is applied. And the biggest piece of it, I'm going to tell you right now, and my concern is law enforcement. Because, law enforcement, many law enforcement officials were not in favor of this law. They weren't. And the challenge is, I understand it. I have a lot of police officers that are friends, at all different levels. And I will tell you that their concern was not, hey, the, average citizen who's trying to do the right thing and protect themselves. It's that it's very difficult to discern and to control a situation. And so they always err on the side of overreacting to protect themselves and their family, because they want to go home at the end of the day. And so it can really ratchet up a situation to where you're thinking like a normal encounter with a police officer when you're unarmed could go pretty simply. Some questions and you're on your way. When you're armed, it's highly likely you're going to get handcuffed. You're going to get secured. Your weapon's going to be removed from you. You're going to have a much longer interaction with the police officer in this scenario than you would any other way.
I will say this, if I can play a little bit as devil's advocate on the gun bill. Now, this is my own kind of personal opinion, but I do think laws like this do create a little bit of a deterrent for, and I'll explain why in just a second. They create a little bit of a deterrent for the shootout in the public area, and you see all of these school shootings and mall shootings and different things that happen, that are tragic. I mean, but where do these shooters, these active shooters, where do they hit? I mean, they typically hit places where there isn't going to be guns. A school, for example. They shoot up a school or a church where you're not going to be carrying a gun, or nobody's going to be carrying a gun. When was the last time we had a mall shootout in Texas where people can carry guns? I do think it does create a little bit of a deterrent effect to the would-be shooter who, is not gonna go shoot up a shopping mall. Problem is, when they go to shoot up, they only seem to hit soft targets, the targets where they know they're not gonna encounter somebody who might have a gun. And I think part of this is probably a little bit of a deterrent effect.
Well, and I really feel like, and I'll agree with you, and I'll take it a step further, Brian. I feel like it falls short. This law, in my opinion, falls short of its intended target. Its intended target was, hey, guess what? We're going to put everybody on a level playing field. We're going to put criminals on notice that you run the risk of somebody being able to respond to your act of violence with extreme violence, right? And that in itself should be a deterrent. The problem is exactly what you just said. There's so many exclusions to where you can carry and where you would take it that, I'll give you a prime example. One of the things that you mentioned, let's just talk Friday night football, because we're about to be there, brother, and I'm all kinds of fired up, right? All right.
Got about a month.
Football's back in season. Everybody's practicing, putting on the pads, getting out there. You go Friday night football. Can you carry? You cannot. Where do a lot of these altercations and shootouts in parking lots happen? Yeah. Are you to your car? Maybe, maybe not. Do you make it? No. Is it in the stands? Yes. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so I'll tell you one that just happened in the Metroplex. There's a very well-known amusement park. It's a water park, for crying out loud. Everybody's leaving the park and closing out. There's a big shootout. 2 teenagers die. So, this is the situation that we're finding ourselves in more and more. And so where you would think the challenge that I have to this law is, you and I are law-abiding officers of the court. We understand it, we read it, we know how to apply it. Criminals don't care. Criminals could care less what this flipping law says. They're going to walk it into a hospital. They're going to walk it into an amusement park. They're going to walk it into a Friday night football game. Do you know what I'm saying? And the challenge is that the people who are law abiding, that this law is designed to help. It is helping in some ways. I'm not going to lie, because it makes it where you don't have to take a course. You don't have to have a license. You just go.
The criminal may not get halfway down the street after the.
Well,
after
he may
shootout,
not. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. But I would just tell you, like, that's where I feel like the law falls short. And I think that's the rub, right? But that's the challenge of laws like this. We've talked about it before, is when you want to go down this road, I really feel like you either have to go down the road and say, do it, we can do it. It's wherever you go, you can have it. Or because when you try to put these parameters that say you can do it, but in very limited fashions, in very limited places, and you better understand how to do it. The only restriction that's applying to is the same rub you're hearing from all the other people. It's applying to law-abiding citizens. It's not applying to the criminals, and that's who we're really trying to deal with. So,
I mean, and I understand the exclusions. I mean, most of these places are going to have armed security anyway. Airports, amusement parks, correctional facilities, racetracks. Most of the time, football games are going to have armed security there too. And I understand not bringing a gun around a polling place. I think that goes bad. There's a long history of not doing that.
Hey, dude, we're only going to make them vote one way. I mean, I think that's fair.
Right. That's why they have that exclusion in place. So I mean, you can vote free and clear of any kind of threat sitting over your shoulder, right?
Sure.
But yeah, well, to your point, I mean, it does create a lot more soft targets potentially. But I get not being able to carry in a bar. I mean, you don't want to have guns around where you're serving
Getting
alcohol.
Drunk. Hey.
Right.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is, though, brother, like that's where these types of interactions, they legitimately are happening. And so, that's the challenge of a law like this. And so while I agree the sentiment of it, absolutely, I feel like, it's in our Constitution, it's in my personal Constitution, my family's Constitution, that this is, the right to carry, the right to bear arms. I was raised in it. I live it, breathe it, I believe it. I just think that, when we try to govern it with very, detailed, structured laws like this, it really becomes very restrictive. And the person that ends up finding those penalties, brother, is not the bad guy. Most of the time, the people who are struggling with this, who are getting these large fines, who are getting these misdemeanor and third-degree felony charges, are not the criminals. They're actually, most of the time, the good guys.
So let me ask you this. So on the one hand, you have the potential deterrent effect of, hey, I'm not going to shake down that guy in the parking lot and try to fight him or rob him or whatever, because he might be carrying a gun.
Sure.
The other side of the coin is, does it escalate, potential violent encounters? Because, hey, I've got my gun, so so I've got a case of Billy Badass, and I can go over there and incite this altercation because he's not going to mess with me because I'm carrying. So which so I don't know the statistics behind that, and I don't know if they've even done a study on something like that. But does it create a deterrent effect? Like, hey, I better not try to fight in the parking lot because I might get shot, or hey, I'm going to be more likely to fight because I got a heater backing me up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in the mad dog theory. Have you heard the mad dog theory? I'm gonna tell it to you. So the mad dog theory is that when you run into a mad dog, there's one thing that you can do. You can shoot and put that dog down, because if you don't, that dog is going to put you down. Now, I will tell you that the scenario that presents to is crazy people. And you and I both know, brother, with a long history in the law, that trying to talk common sense to crazy people, it just doesn't work.
Never going to happen. Never.
Right, because they don't understand common sense. They only understand crazy. And that's really the basis of this law. And
so you meet crazy at crazy's level.
Oh, that's where I was going. Because honestly, unless you're prepared to meet crazy at crazy's level, then you really should be looking for the flight rather than the fight in that scenario. But Texas, obviously, we're one of those states where you can stand your ground. You can decide, hey, you know what, this is worth it to me to be able to have a year, 2 years worth of legal battles. It's going to cost me all of my money and my house and my family and maybe my freedom, because this guy cut me off and I'm just pissed off enough to want to step outside with my gun because I feel confident about it. You still have to make intelligent decisions. I really believe the concealed carry law is designed to give people the ability to respond, but they still have to be able to decide when that situation warrants it. And that's
a personal responsibility thing.
Right. And that's where I think just a little bit of training. I know none of us want to go to school. I know none of us want to learn anything because we know everything already. But in this one scenario, I would tell you that, your heart is pumping. You've got adrenaline jumping through. I mean, most people don't even hit the target that they're trying to when they pull a weapon for the first time to discharge it. Yes. They miss. Right. And guess what? You're right off the interstate. You're shooting people in their car and having wrecks. You miss somebody, you hit their house, you kill somebody in somebody's kid in their bedroom sleeping. Those are the things that, are the arguments for just a little bit of education. I mean, the military does months and months and months and months of training to learn how to properly discharge those weapons.
They start teaching you when you're in the military is proper gun safety, proper use of a firearm. Same thing in the police academy. Yeah, the first thing they teach you is how to handle a gun, how to handle it properly, and how to take care of it, and how to respect that firearm.
So I'm 100% behind people's right to do this. I just wish that rather than a suggested course, there was at least something that said you got to go through a minimum amount of learning, or at least proven. Fine, if you don't want to do the learning because you're like, hey, I've been around this my whole life, I'm ex-military, I don't need to do this. Great, then pop up, do the test, answer some questions, and be done. You're good. You don't have to see it again. I worry about the people who don't know it. But look, here's the bottom line: we're free in this country still, sort of, kind of. And
So far.
as long as we can have those sort of kind of freedoms, then I think we should, protect them. And so I am behind it. I just, it does raise concerns, and they're not no easy answers to your point, brother. I mean, like, it's going to be talked about for a while. We're going to have to see how it plays itself out. But
I think it's an interesting law, and I think like to your earlier point is, the only people that are going to follow this law are law-abiding citizens. The criminals not going to care whether there's a concealed carry law or not a concealed carry law. They're going to carry no matter what, and they're going to carry as heavy as they possibly can. If they can get an AK-47 fully automatic, they're going to do it.
I see my guy at Chipotle every day, man. He's walking in with his AK. I'm like, all right.
So you're the only people that are going to follow this typically are going to be law-abiding citizens. So why put another impediment in their place? I think that's maybe a little bit of the rationale behind this. Why put another impediment in their place to keep them from being able to carry a gun when that the criminals aren't people that would be likely to use this gun to cause harm to people aren't following any of this stuff. So
yeah, hey man, grandma's packing. I like it. It's like that. I don't know. Remember those old
look how many
grandma would pull out that big old 357 with the long barrel, the nickel plated one, and be like, hey.
Let's talk a little bit about this, because this is something where where this could come into play. And I know you've got college age kiddos, so a college campus. I mean, how many rapes, campus rapes, have been averted because that child's packing heat?
Yeah, and honestly, there was quite a stir when this first came out, because there were provisions of the law that said that when they, at college campuses, colleges could restrict like where you could keep it. So you could keep it in your vehicle, but you couldn't bring it into the dorms.
I think you may have a ghost. The ghost behind you. Door opened. Hey. It was really creepy. Very paranormal activity.
That's a crazy dog.
Very paranormal activity.
Man, my dogs can do some crazy things. Like they're bona fide.
You're talking and the door opens.
They're bona fide geniuses, and they can open freaking
the girl
doors.
From the ring coming out of there,
dude. If you see that freaking lady talk, you got to tell me, man. I'll freaking go get the heater real quick. But
no, you're gonna have to use it.
I probably would. Crazy dog. He freaks everybody out. When you can put your paw up there and be like, "Hey,"
I mean, the door just goes. I'm like, oh crap! Is that crazy girl from the ring that crawled out of the well?
This. Yeah, he's this tall. And so as he's coming out, everyone's like, "That's freaking me the hell out." It's The Conjuring,
Anyway, sorry.
No, I'm glad you let me know, because you can wreak some havoc in there for sure. But I would tell you that I don't even know where we were going.
Oh, college campuses.
Oh, college kids. Yeah. So there have been a lot of restrictions that universities have put in place as far as like where you can, maintain that weapon, when you can carry, and that's really been
it's not a private business. A college campus is not a private business. Obviously, it's not a high school. Can you carry it into your high school or your college, English 101 class?
Well, they did. So the legislature and the courts kind of spent some time on that. I would tell you, I sat on a board of regents for a while for a university. And the general consensus was, just like you can't bring them into the schoolroom and high school, you shouldn't be able to take them into the college classroom. Now, obviously, we've had some pretty severe and dramatic shootings on college campuses in the past. And so, that was one of the things, again, where we're talking about these restrictions that you just really have to understand and know your rights. But also the people who were these laws are really designed to protect, and these instances that are inspiring us to enact these kinds of laws are really in the exception for the most part than they are in the rule. Doesn't mean that people can't at least run out to their car and get it and come back in, because you can have it in your car in the parking lot, just can't have it in the building. But
you can walk on the campus to dorm, at night,
Yeah, it
as
gives
a female,
you some sense
I think
of
as a female,
sure.
I don't really see it's going to help you a lot more than a rape whistle is going to help you. I mean, in my opinion.
Well, I can tell you, look, obviously my daughter, she's a college age girl, and we spend a lot of time, at the range working through stuff, and I feel secure about her security, as long as she, does what she's supposed to do. So I agree with you 100%. It definitely gives you some peace of mind in those situations. I just, I'm hoping that we as a state do a good job of implementing this at the person level. Because really, you know, when you're at 5,000 feet or 50,000 feet, like the legislature is, and you're creating these laws, you have no idea how in application it's really going to work. And so it's the everyday Joe and Sally that are going to put this in place. And those are the people that I'm concerned about, you know, that they really kind of spend a little bit of time, hopefully listen to this podcast and get some insight and inspire them to maybe go, you know, pull up that law, you know, do a little due diligence, think about where you're going before you put that under your shirt and go to that place so you don't get yourself in trouble.
Or make an appointment, go talk to your local sheriff. I mean, they're nice people, they're elected, they're elected officials. They're going to tell you, you know, how they feel about it in their particular jurisdiction, and, you know, what you should, you know, and it's important to probably know that person anyway. You know, go down to your local sheriff's office, get to know your local sheriff who patrols your neighborhood. I mean, it's important that you know that person, and honestly, it's important that you know that person. That person. It's important your kids know that person.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely agree.
And I mean, I don't think there's any harm in going and introducing yourself to law enforcement and saying, hey, you know, they got this new gun law. I mean, what do you guys think about it? What do you guys look for? What do I need to be concerned about? I mean, yeah, they're not gonna, you know, obviously you have the right to, you know, to carry, and they're not gonna say they're gonna infringe on your rights, but at the same time, I mean, it's the application of the law that we're talking about. That's where we have a job. We have a job in the application of law and to facts in certain situations, right? I mean, whether it's family, whether it's criminal, whatever the case may be. So, you know, the application of this law to the facts of a particular situation is going to be where, you know, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. So how are the police officers in your local jurisdiction gonna view this, you know, in a particular situation? You know, sometimes in that police report is all the details, right?
Yeah.
So it's worth maybe going and talking to them and saying, hey, you know, this is important to me, and, you know, I want to see what you guys think.
When I will tell you, like, you know, one of the things that I also have encouraged, like, friends, family members, clients who asked me about this law and kind of suggestions, I'm going to tell you, I think there's two things that you have to remember. One is that, you know, if you are carrying and you have any encounter, I don't care if it's a speeding ticket, whether it's a local cop or a state trooper, you better identify to that officer that you are carrying concealed. Okay. Most of the time they're going to tell you to leave it wherever it is. They're probably going to get super heightened, but I would tell you, talking to most of the law enforcement people that I know, officers, sheriffs, Secret Service, these guys are saying, hey, look, it just means that more and more as we're doing any kind of interactions with the public, our heightened level is not, you know, we usually run around at about 7 in a scale of 1 to 10. They said, really, we're just going to stay at about 9 because we just don't know. And it helps when you're honest in those interactions to kind of keep things at an even keel, or even kind of bring them down. It's much worse for you to get into that situation, in my opinion, and say, you know what, I'm not going to bring this to their attention. And then all of a sudden they come across it as hey, will you step out of the vehicle? I just want to check whatever. And they see it. You didn't tell them about it. I'm telling you what, you're going to end up in the back of a squad car till they sort it out. So, you know, that point number one. Point number two is really, I guess, as a secondary note from somebody who has a family and, you know, has kids. I'm just going to tell you, if you've never owned a firearm, but you decided that this law enacting on September 1 has inspired you to go get one, please make sure that you're taking all the necessary precautions to secure it. Right.
Lock it up, gun safes, gun locks.
Yeah. I mean,
keeping the bullets away from the gun.
Gosh, it's just, you know, it could be just a terrible situation. And the reason I tell you that is because when you carry consistently, it becomes one of the things. It's like putting your wallet and keys down when you come back, right? You take them out of your pocket, you find a place, you put them down. Well, you know, when you carry consistently, a lot of times your firearm becomes that. It's like an extension of the things that you just naturally put on your person when you go places. So you just want to make sure that, hey, you know what, you understand that's not a set of keys. It's not your wallet. It's a dangerous weapon. And it's not a paperweight. So it's something that needs to be secured every time.
I had a client one time that carried and discharged a firearm into, I believe, his thigh, because he, I guess, just didn't realize it, you know, that it was loaded, didn't have the safety on. And like you said, carrying around a wallet or a car keys, picked it up to put it in, you know, put it in his holster there on his side, and shoots himself in the leg. So
yeah, I had a client. Yeah, I had a
Be
client who was
careful.
carrying, brother. He was changing the tire, had a flat tire on the side of the road. Family's in the vehicle. Okay. He gets out to change it. He's got his weapon on, his hip. As he's trying to change it, he's trying to pull this lug nut off, and it's really tight. So he's fighting with it. It finally comes free. And you know how those always happen. They come up at the worst moment. He throws him off balance. He falls backwards. He kept one in the chamber, falls back. It discharges into the vehicle. Thankfully, it didn't hit anybody. But I mean, he was just devastated. I mean, he was like, "Oh my God, if that would have, something tragic would have happened,
Right.
I don't know
2
what I
inches
would
to
have
the
done."
right or whatever.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, like that's one of the things we haven't even talked about. And those are kind of preferences, right? Do you keep one in the chamber? Do you keep it where it's ready to be chambered? Well, these are all things that you can discuss with somebody who's been in the field, who's carried for years, who maybe was a former law enforcement or is law enforcement. To your point, talk to them about it, because these are the kinds of things that you have to make a determination on in advance of carrying.
Hey, I'm
Right.
not going to be too proud to tell you that, hey, whenever we got a gun, me and my wife went down to the local shooting range. We got a guy who was former law enforcement, sit down with us, show us how this gun works. Let's walk through it, walk through the safety measures of it. Let's fire it on the range. Let's learn about how this weapon works.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
if we need to
absolutely.
use it, we can use it. And, that way, we're not scared of it, and we're not, when we know how it works and we know how to be safe with it. There's nothing in the world wrong with that. I mean, it's probably the best, I don't know, 80 to $100 we spend.
Well, the thing, and that's brilliant, brother. That's a great point, because everybody, I'll tell you, you have to have a license to have a dog. You have to have a license to drive a car. All these things potentially are serious weapons. And so I'm not saying that we need to have a license for this, but I do think that you just need to understand what you're doing before you do it. So,
right.
That's all I'd encourage you. Now, the advantage, I did want to kind of make this 1.2. People are like, well, you don't need your LTC anymore. Here's why I'm going to tell you an LTC matters. If you go through that course and get it, you can still carry as you travel, if you travel interstate, depending on where you're going. Know your jurisdiction, but you cannot, just because you can carry concealed in Texas, then decide, hey, I'm going to go to Kansas and I can concealed carry in Kansas if they don't have a similar law. So, that's kind of one of those things that you got to make sure.
And know where you're going.
Yeah, know where you're going, know the jurisdiction, know the laws as they apply. If you have questions, obviously contact, contact the local, municipality, the sheriffs, the police department, ask them, say, hey, I'm going to be taking a trip in this. And I usually carry, what are the laws in there and what do I need to know? They'll tell you right off the
bat. They sure will. What car do you drive again? What's the license plate number? What road are you traveling on?
What's your driver's license number so I can keep an eye out for you when you show up? Yeah.
What road you coming down? No, but yeah, I mean, this is all great information. So I encourage anyone to take a look at this bill. If you have questions, reach out to us. If you have, reach out to a competent counsel and, get your questions answered. Well, awesome. This was a good one today, I think.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but I'm glad we got this. This was something that was hot on my mind. So.
We talked to Brittany. Let's change subject a little bit. We talked to Brittany Spears a while back on there's been some updates in the conservatorship war as it pertains to the guardianship of one Brittany Spears.
The naughty hottie Brittany, yeah.
It is turning into a legal bloodbath, right? I mean, there's motions flying around. They're trying to discharge the dad as the conservator. She's given interviews telling them she can't even use her, she can't even decide when she takes her birth control out based on the conservator, because the conservator controls all of that. So, it's kind of a crazy situation.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think the thing that people are, learning vicariously at Brittany's expense is that, guardianships, once they're put in place, they're very difficult to wrap up. Giving control sometimes is a whole lot easier than taking it back, especially in the court system, because once you involve the courts, you have all these hurdles where people are they're going to make you what we call, jump through poodle hole.
Got to get a threshold before you can justify a change.
Yeah, and that's really the challenge that she's running up against, because clearly when this was put in place, she voluntarily said, yeah, let's do this because I'm a train wreck. And now she's like, but I'm not a train wreck. And they're like, well, technically you are still a train wreck. We're just going to loosen some of these reins up. And everybody's like, yeah, there's a big political movement and,
the Free Brittany movement.
Yeah, that's saying, hey, and what they're really arguing against is like these forced guardianships or these voluntary guardianships and the hurdles that you have to overcome to get released from them. But the thing about it is that in these situations, and she's got competent counsel now. I don't know who counsel. I don't know how competent her counsel was before, but the person that she has retained now is like got years and years of experience, and clearly has decided that, hey, you know what, my client wants to be out of this. I'm going to do everything that I can to get out of it. So you're right, brother. I mean, we're going to see the lawyers are going to make a ton of money in this case, you know, because they're going to be fighting because nobody wants to let go.
Right now, you got an unhappy woman. She's not a girl anymore, as her song would tell you. But no, she's an unhappy, woman that thinks she can make her own decisions, and time will tell on that, I guess. But I mean, you're in a situation now where she won't even perform because she doesn't get to keep the money. I mean, essentially, it goes in. She gets to keep the money, but she doesn't really get the money. And
well, she couldn't even drive, brother. I mean, that's like some crazy stuff. I mean, so she just got to where she can drive.
She can't have a child with her boyfriend. I mean, she can't
get
marry her boyfriend.
Can't doesn't have the legal capacity according to the court to be able to enter a marriage. So, when you think about it in that context, the personal freedoms that you give up in those motions, I mean, in those court proceedings, it's substantial. And she's got a long road to hoe in front of her for sure.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for the time today. Tell us what's new with our favorite band, Crush Bouquet.
Oh my God. Hey, so Crush Bouquet, my son's band. I'm super proud of them. I'll tell you that
great song, great intro song for us.
Yeah. So they got they're working on their brand new LP right now. They've got like 4 original tracks. They're doing their first live show in Austin this weekend on Saturday. Nice. So if you have the opportunity to check them out, I think they're, I know it's online, Crush Bouquet. You can look them up. They're on iTunes. They're on Pandora. They're on all the streaming services. So
they're on the Top Texas Lawyers podcast too.
Hey man, they let us borrow a song, so we can say back when we'll be like, hey, we got to set that out first. So it's pretty good.
Absolutely. So if people want to reach out to you, where do they get you?
Sure. You can find me, if I'm not in Miami, I'm going to be up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You can reach me directly. Probably email's the best way at ssanchez @astxlegal.com. You can call me directly at 817-914-5470.
All right. And I'm obviously you can reach either one of us at our website, www.astxlegal.com. Bryan Abercrombie, babercrombie at astxlegal.com. My office number is 281-374-4741. So we'd be happy to talk to you about any legal issues you want to bring our way. So thanks for the time again, Sam. I know it's been a while. I hope you had a great summer, and we're back on our BS, so to speak, right?
Back on the horse, brother.
Back on the bullshit. All right, brother. Have a great one, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good, bro.